Welcome to the Empowerment Hour, a podcast dedicated to the woman ready to take charge of her life, live in her purpose, and be unapologetically authentic. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, award-winning author, mommypreneur, and the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah who is dedicated to helping women unleash their power, discover their purpose, and live up to their fullest potential. My goal is to empower you, inspire you, and help you unlock your passions and discover your purpose so that you live the most fulfilled and impassioned life. If you're ready to make a change and start living on purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. You are tuned in to another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast. The podcast where you get your life and you get it from none other than your girl, Nancy Ruffin, aka the Purpose Professional and your personal empowerment specialist. So how are you guys doing? Oh, we are just getting back off of an extended weekend, right? Special shout out to MLK Jr., right? We had the day off yesterday in observance of his life and of his work and of his commitment and dedication to civil rights and equality and justice for all. So, it's a great day of remembrance for me, particularly because my daughter, who is in kindergarten, is learning about Martin Luther King Jr. in school. So she's been very eager to learn about him. And so we've spent a lot of time this weekend discussing his life, discussing his contributions, talking about what he stood for and why his life and his legacy was so important, and not only for Black people, right, but for all disenfranchised groups, for all minorities, because it's important to remember that one person's struggle is everyone's struggle. And so even though he was very vocal and most of his work centered on civil rights and equality for the Black movement back in the 50s and 60s, it was because of all of that work that other minority groups or disenfranchised groups received many of the benefits or the fruits of his labor and the labor of all of those that were very active in that movement. So it's important for me to kind of just, take a moment to acknowledge the significance of his life and, to really appreciate what he was put on this earth to do, right? And it's something that I talk a lot about, and it's, being of service and how we use our lives, or how we should be using our lives to leave an impact in this world, and how what we do today, what we do tomorrow, and those little action steps or those little things that we don't traditionally view as huge things really are, right? Everything that we do is cementing our legacy. And even in times of injustice, or when we know that things are not right, it's important for us to speak up, to use our voices, to use our platforms in whatever way we can, to do the right thing. Because it's not just enough to not participate in whatever action is, keeping us oppressed or keeping a certain group oppressed, but it's not being silent during those times. That it is in those times that even though it may not be directly affecting us, that we stand up and that we become allies to those groups that are indeed being oppressed. Because the reality is, it may not be us today, but it may very well be us tomorrow. And so we never know. So it's never a bad thing to stand up for what's right. So yeah, so that's just me acknowledging the importance of Martin Luther King. It wasn't just a day to stay home and relax, because I will tell you guys, I did nothing. I did not relax. I spent my Monday cleaning, doing chores, prepping for the week. And then on top of that, I spent the majority of my afternoon helping my mother enroll for Obamacare. And so I'm not sure how many of you out there are familiar with that process. If you're not a professional, if you're not what we call in healthcare a certified application counselor, and these are people who actually are certified to enroll individuals in healthcare via the federal government healthcare exchange, the marketplace. It is a lot of freaking work, man. And so it wasn't just completing the application for her. It was reviewing all of the different plans that exist in the marketplace and trying to figure out which one best suits her needs based on what she can afford to pay, really, as far as premiums, as far as out-of-pocket expenses when it comes to deductibles and co-insurance and primary care visits and specialist visits. And I'm in healthcare, and so I'm pretty well versed in a lot of this and a lot of the terminology, but it still wasn't easy. And in the end, we still didn't choose a plan because we wanted to kind of just weigh our options. And the reason that she has to apply for Obamacare is because my dad is retiring the end of this month, and she's currently covered under his employer health plan. But when he retires, she's going to lose her coverage. And she's still not eligible for Medicare. I think she has like a year and a half before she becomes eligible. So in the meantime, she needs coverage. And it was not fun. It was painful for me. And it took up so much time. But it really is necessary, because even as expensive as it is to shop for health insurance via the marketplace, it's even more expensive if you're sick and end up having to be hospitalized or go to the doctor. And it's just so much more expensive. And then when you add prescription drugs, if you need medicine, follow-up visits, all of that, coming out of your pocket can really bankrupt someone. So, I don't, if you are interested, I would encourage you to go visit your local public hospital. I work for New York City Health and Hospitals, my day job, and we have 11 hospitals all across New York City, public hospitals, and you can walk into any one of our hospitals and ask to speak to either an enrollment representative or a certified application counselor, and they will walk you through the process. They will screen you for health insurance, and they will discuss your options with you. And you have nothing to lose. So I encourage you, go out there, take care of yourself, take care of your health, make sure you get that insurance coverage. And I just gave HHC free promotion. Ain't that some shit? Right. But I guess I can't be mad at that because my paycheck is never late, right? That money is in my account every 2 weeks. So yeah, so we have to make sure that we stay viable and profitable. In any case, I want to introduce a new segment since we are in the new year, and I'm always, thinking about how I can give you all more value and keep things fresh and interesting and exciting. So what I'm going to be doing at the beginning of every show, before we kind of delve into our topic and the theme for the week, is a weekly roundup. And in the weekly roundup, what I'm going to be discussing is just things that kind of have happened during the week, be it in, pop culture, politics, weird news, things in my life that have been going on. I want to share that in the weekly roundup, just kind of add a little spice to the show. And so for this week, it's the beginning of the new year. And so like all of you, I am really trying to figure out what my plan is going to be this year. So I spent a lot of time this past week first reconnecting with my own coach, because even though I provide coaching services, to you all and to prospective clients, it's important that coaches also have coaches, guys, right? Because that is how we can ensure that we're always at the top of our game. And so for me this week, I reconnected with my coach, who is a phenomenal brand strategist, really in tune and aligned with the business component of this work that I do, because I spend so much time on the actual content and the creative part that sometimes I let the business side of it fall by the wayside. So my coach does a really great job at reeling me back in and helping me get those business goals in order. So that is what I've been doing this week. And I guess to piggyback off of that, I also actually had some time to really sit and complete my vision board. And so while I had done all of the pre-work, like I had listed all my goals, I knew I had listed my action steps and all of the things that I would have to do in order to make sure that the goal is accomplished. I had did all of that pre-work, but what I hadn't done was put the visual images on the board. And so this past week, I was able to do that. And in doing that, after I completed the vision board and I stepped back and I looked at it, and I looked at the vision board I had last year and I guess years before, there was a huge difference in the one that I did this year. And for me, it was that there were no material items on my board, meaning that there were no pictures of like huge, beautiful houses. I didn't put any pictures of any cars or shoes or anything that was material. Most of what I put on my board was really centered on living more in my purpose, giving more of myself in my work, making sure that everything I do this year is aligned with my vision for myself and the mission for my organization. It was a huge difference. And not that there's anything wrong with putting material items on your board. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because if those are the things that you want, then absolutely put them on there, visualize them, because it will keep you focused on making sure that you're doing what you have to do to get those things. But what I realized for me, and the point that I'm at in my own journey, is that I finally come to realize that as long as I am committed to the work, as long as I'm doing quality work, as long as the work that I do is bringing value to my audience and people are learning from it and are growing from it, the opportunities for me are going to continue to present themselves. And with opportunity, right, comes everything else. So the more opportunities I get, the more people I'm reaching. The more people I reach, the better known I become. The better known I become, the more my reach is, right? And for me, I want to be global. I want to be international. I really want to be able to help people on a grand scale. because when I call myself the Latina Oprah, it's not that I want to step into her shoes. I don't want to be Oprah. I don't. I want to be myself. I want to be Nancy. But what I want is to have the kinds of impact that Oprah has had. And in fact, I want my impact to be bigger. I want my legacy to be huge and large. And right now, no one does that better than Oprah. So for me, she's the blueprint. She is who I look to as my mentor in my head, from her philanthropy to her commitment to social justice, to giving back. I mean, just everything about her is everything that I aspire to be. And this is something that I've said numerous times. And, those of you that have followed my journey and have been with me from the very beginning know this. So I don't want to throw people off, and I don't want to turn people off when they hear myself when they hear me call myself the Latina Oprah, because I by no means want to be her. I want to be me in my own lane, doing my own thing in my own way. But I want to have her reach. I want to be that big. I want to be known as just Nancy, no last name needed. So that is what Oprah signifies to me. And so on my vision board, everything that I put on there is just focused on me creating the life that I want through the work that I'm doing. And the life that I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be purposeful. I want my legacy to be something that lives far longer than I do. And I want people to talk about me as a person who gave all that I had to give. Because in the end, the material stuff, we don't take that with us, right? When we die, we die. We leave everything else behind. And no one remembers the things that you had, but they do remember the things that you did. And so for me, that is what my vision board represents. It's me stepping more into my purpose and using my God-given gifts to be of service to the world, to the universe, right? Screw the world, right? To the universe. So I did my vision board, and I get really passionate when I talk about this because I do love what I do. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I love the women that I work with. I love you all who tune into me every single week. And I've been doing so much work with the podcast because I really want this to expand. I want it to grow. I want everyone to be tuned in to the Empowerment Hour podcast. One of my goals is to make this the #1 podcast for women empowerment. And, and with that, there's work that goes into that. And so I've been working really hard this past week at scheduling more guests to have on, because I think it's important that, for me not to only share my story and my knowledge and my wisdom, but to also provide a platform for other women to do so as well. So I've been steady scheduling guests, so look out for that. We have, some really amazing women that I will be interviewing in the weeks to come. I've also been prepping for my Latina.com interview that I'm going to be having this week, which is huge for me. Because what it, I guess, reminds me of is that my work is not in vain, that all the work that I put into the podcast, into my books, into my articles, into my events, is being recognized and people are noticing. And it just feels really good because I don't do it for the recognition. I don't do it for the accolades, but I would be lying if I said that it didn't feel good to be recognized, and it absolutely does. And it just makes the work that much more worth it, right? So that's happening this week. And it's just so much. And what I've realized, and in talking with my coach, is that I'm growing and my brand is growing, and It's scary as hell, guys. I am scared, petrified, terrified, but I can't let that stop me because my purpose is so much bigger than myself. And if I allow fear to stop me now, then I'm never going to reach the levels that I have set for myself. I'm never going to reach, I'm never going to impact the lives that I want to touch. And I can't stop. And so I refuse to let fear stop me. You know, and it's not fear of failing. And I've said this before, it's the fear of actually succeeding and the responsibility that comes with that success and the expectations that come with success. You know, and so with all of that, and success is something that we're going to be talking about this week, and perception and how we define success and all of that good stuff. But before we get into that, like, I realized that I need to hire a virtual assistant or someone who can kind of work with me and help me behind the scenes to do some of the tasks that I just can't manage anymore just because of all of the work that is starting to come in, you know. So doing research, right? Scheduling my guests, maybe, you know, creating some of my content for me to post, whether, you know, be it on my website, be it on my social media platforms. You know, it's all of this stuff that goes into building a brand that when I initially started, you know, it was cool and I was able to handle it all, but it's becoming unmanageable for me. And, you know, and I have no problem saying that because I'm not Wonder Woman. Like, and one thing that I want you all to realize is that although I started by myself, I started alone, I have not gotten to where I've gotten by myself, right? And although I don't have a quote unquote team per se, I do have people who constantly show up for me. I do have people who constantly support me, and that's you all included, because I wouldn't be able to do this podcast if no one was tuning in and listening every week or giving me feedback. But now I realize I need a more, I guess, a closer, you know, team that can help me with the hands-on, you know, the hands-on work that needs to be done. And I'm not afraid to ask for help. And that's something that I actually put on my vision board, because I've always depended solely on myself for such a long time that sometimes it's hard to delegate and relinquish tasks, especially when they're so meaningful to me, because I do love what I do and I'm so very conscious and aware of my image and my reputation that to put any of that responsibility in the hands of someone else is hard. And it requires a certain amount of trust to do that, and not just trust in the person that comes to work with me, but trust that God is going to connect me with the right person for that job. And I want you to, notice that I said person to work with me, not for me, but with me, because whoever comes on is going to be my partner in this. And my hope is that they can grow with me and be someone that kind of, you know, stays with me for the long haul. And whoever, you know, joins my team, I want them to understand that it's not just them working with me, but they're actually going to get a behind the scenes, hands-on look at the work that I do. They're going to be a part of my workshops. They are going to be able to learn from me and everything that I've done, everything that I do, and everything that I share with the public. I mean, they're going to be like my right hand, and so they will have access to all of this. And so for me, it's important that I get the right person. But with that said, I'm putting a call out there. So if you think that you have what it takes to work with me, work with someone who is dynamic and engaging and always ahead of the game, and who is committed to being of service to others, understanding that it's not about me, but it's about the value that I bring to those who search or who need my services, right? It's never about the me. It's always about the we. So, and if this is something you're interested, then send me your resume, highlighting your most important skills or the things that you're really, really great at. And I will review it, and I will start, I'm going to start doing interviews within the next couple of weeks. Right now it's a part-time position, just a couple of hours a week. And so it's not full-time. It's just maybe, I haven't figured it out yet, but maybe, 5 hours a week. So it'll be like an hour a day or something like that. And we can figure out the logistics based on, on the fit between whoever decides to kind of come on board. But if you're interested, then send me your resume to nancy@thefiercewoman.org. Again, that's nancy@thefiercewoman.org. And with that being said, I just realized that weekly roundup was really long. So who knows, I might have to trim that next time. But for this week, I really wanted us to start talking about success and what success means to us. Because I think it's important to remember that success is relative. And so what one person deems as successful may not be the same way you define success, and vice versa. And it's important to really understand what that means to you, because once you know how you define success, you have a clear picture of what your goals are going to be. This is goal setting season. Everyone does their goals and the vision boards. The beginning of the year, people are really focused on what they want to manifest. And it's important to make sure that the goals you're identifying align with your idea of success. Because if it doesn't, then why are you setting those goals? Right? Because then at that point, you have to kind of step back and reassess, and you look at your goals and say, well, are these goals really goals that I want for myself? Or are these goals that I'm setting based on others' expectations of me and what others deem as successful? Because sometimes that's not going to align, and the last thing you want to do is set goals and define success based on someone else's expectations. And the reason I say that is because when you don't define success on your own terms, then it's really hard to stay focused and stay on track. Because if you're doing something because you think someone else wants you to do that, or because it's someone else's definition of success, the minute things get hard, because they will, you're going to give up. You're going to make an excuse. You're not going to follow through. And so you have to be clear on what that is, and this past week, I've been thinking a lot about success and about how that translates, or how we internalize that. Because sometimes we look at others, right, and we see them as successful because of the things that they have, or maybe the income that they make, or their popularity on social media. And we start to project our own shit onto them. And the reason that I want to talk about this is because all across social media, I'm constantly seeing memes and posts talking about haters and, hating, and just all this negativity. And every time I see someone post about haters, I often wonder, what is going on with that person? Because I know, just from my own journey, just from studying psychology in school, that a lot of what we see in others are things that we see in ourselves, right? So it's projecting. So we're projecting our own morals, values, beliefs, and the things that we believe to be true about ourselves onto others. So when I see these hating posts and these hating memes, I think if this person spent less time focusing on this perceived hate and more time healing the part of themselves that believes this person is hating on them, they would be so much happier, right? Because hate takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And who has time for that? Me personally, I don't believe in hate. I mean, I know in my conscious mind, I understand that jealousy and envy do exist. I do understand that, and I know that people possess those traits. However, I don't. And so I never, in my mind, think that people hate me. I don't think I have haters, because why would anyone hate me? I think I'm pretty cool. And I posted this on my Instagram this week. I work hard. I'm always willing to help people. And so why would anyone hate me? Nothing that I have is worth hating, because nothing that I have is unattainable, right? I own a home. I have a car. I have a regular job. I have a family. And these are all things that anyone who works hard can have. And so why anyone would hate me is beside me. And I'm sure that, I don't know, there might be people that do hate me, but I don't see it. And so I just really wanted to talk about where that comes from and why people believe that they have haters. What part of themselves need that healing? Why, that's stemming from a place of self-hate and a place of inadequacy where they feel like they don't measure up to this other person or to other people or to whatever. And I will tell you guys that comparison, comparing yourself to others and to what they have, that is going to slowly kill you. That is going to steal all of your joy, your peace, your happiness, everything. That is the worst thing anyone can ever do, is compare themselves to another person. And the reason that I say that is because no two people on this earth are alike. When no one is like you, no one is like me. And that is the beauty of being an individual, that we all are different, that we all have different gifts and talents and things that make us special. And I know that society has brainwashed us and conditioned us to believe that we all have to look a certain way or receive certain recognitions and accolades and material things to be worthy, but that is a lie. Okay, what makes you valuable is your individuality. Those things that make you different, those things that can't be copied or duplicated or that is where your value lies. And so I encourage you to dig deep within yourself, take a really good look at yourself and embrace those things that make you different. And then when you embrace them, figure out how to capitalize on that, right? And I talk about Michael Jackson a lot because he was so different. There's no one in this world like Michael Jackson. There will never be anyone like him. And that's what made him a superstar. That is what made him one of the best, if not the best, entertainer ever. Because he was not afraid to live in his truth and be who he is. And now, I know that his life was plagued by a lot of controversy. And, he had a lot of legal troubles. And that's not the purpose of why I'm using him as an example. But it's just to see that when you are different, there's value in that. And so this thing where we're comparing ourselves to other people, where we're comparing our success to the success of someone else, you guys have to stop that if you really, truly want to be happy. Because at the end of the day, there's someone somewhere looking at you right? And comparing themselves to you. And so what you're busy nitpicking and just breaking yourself down for, someone else is looking at you and saying, wow, I wish I was like so and so. And so it's all about putting things in perspective, and it's all about just learning to love who you are, flaws and all, because everyone has flaws. No one is perfect. We all have things about ourselves that we may not like, or that we're not happy with, or that we may want to change. And you know what? You absolutely have the power to change those things. You just have to want to change, and then take the necessary actions to change your behaviors, to change the way that you think, to change your circumstance, to change the types of decisions and choices that you make, all right? We all have the ability and capability to make different choices. And so I think I'm just going to end this week's podcast with that message. Stop comparing yourself. Start defining success on your own terms. And don't be afraid to live your life your way. So with that said, I will join you guys next week. Same time, same place. And make sure you go out there, stay focused, keep your eyes on the prize. And you know what? Crush some goals.